I am so beyond excited for you guys to hear today's episode with my buddy Nick Capozzi. Nick has been a pitch man for over 2 decades, and he pitched some of the highest quality products out there for companies, on cruises. And what you're going to learn in this episode is the art of the pitch. Not trying to sell your audience, but really learning how to pitch your product the right way, where it's going to create an experience, a feeling, where people are going to really want what you have. And in addition to that, if you guys haven't seen any of the posts, my new book, The Marketing Workbook for LinkedIn, is out. It's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. It did hit #1 new release in 4 different categories. So for those that have supported it, thank you so much. And again, this coming Monday, September 14th, I'm announcing 20 winners. So I am giving away 20 different prizes and gifts to those that support the book. They buy the Kindle or the paperback. They leave an honest and fair review and rating on Amazon, and you will be put in to win one of those 20 amazing prizes. So again, hop onto Amazon, check it out, and enjoy this incredible interview with my buddy Nick. Welcome to the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Scott Aaron, and each and every week, I'm going to come to you with short, simple, and powerful tactics of how you can grow your network marketing business, brand, bank account, and impact on those around you. And just remember, network marketing is not easy, but it can be made easy with simple steps to create the success that you truly deserve. So super stoked about today's episode and training and information that you guys are either listening or watching along with. And the reason why is everyone talks about sales and leads and marketing and funnels and ads, but what people don't talk about is the art of the pitch. How are you actually pitching your services and your products, your business, your brand, what you do? So instead of me trying to describe that for you, I have an industry expert with me today, Nick Capozzi. And why I'm so excited for Nick to be here is his backstory and everything that this man has done in the industry does make him an expert. You know, we talk about the 10-year, the 10,000 hour habit. He's gone way over that. And what we're going to discuss today is the art of the pitch. And again, before I take up any more time, I just want to welcome Nick. So Nick, I'm so grateful for you to be here and just excited to dive in.
Scott, how do I follow up with that kind of introduction, brother? No, I'm just kidding. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk to your people because this is what I do. And, you know, you brought it up. Everyone talks about generating leads and how to work your way through a sales process, how to close. What happens when you actually get a live one? Everyone always forgets about the most critical element, which is the pitch. And that's because the pitch is the tip of the spear. But I want to be really clear on this point. It's not just the initial pitch. People get caught up sometimes and thinking, all right, it's just about my 45-second elevator. And that is key, and we'll get to that. But what you have to think in your mind is it's your first conversation that leads to the next conversation, that leads to the next conversation. And pitching is really about engaging clients with words, building up to a reveal, how to speak, what's the right tempo, when do you pause for effect, all those things. And I think the best way to look at it is you have 45 to 90 seconds to compel someone to keep paying attention to your offer. Because what's the most valuable thing to them? Generally, it's their time, right? So how do you build engagement? How do you create excitement? And how do you get them to answer your call of action? And in all the years I've been doing this, I have seen in my experience inferior products outselling superior products by far if it has an exceptional pitch and presentation to it. So that's kind of where we're going to go today.
So
if that's still good with you.
No, it is. But and you have a very interesting background. You and I had a very in-depth conversation a few weeks back, and you actually started pitching products on cruise ships.
Absolutely. And
so tell people, when they hear someone come on and they're watching a training or listening to an episode, and this guy's talking about the pitch and all that stuff, share with the audience and the people that are listening and watching this, share with them a little bit about how you got into pitching products and how you ended up on cruise ships year after year selling high-end jewelry and everything else that you see on there.
So it's really all about the weather. So, but it's relevant. And actually, when I do my own pitches, when I'm presenting myself and why you should listen to me, it all ties into my personal story. And, I'll get to that in a little while when we actually kind of break down a few key things that you want to look at. But I grew up in Montreal, which is an amazing place to be for June, July, August. And I knew as a kid, I couldn't handle winter. But the sidebar to that is that I grew up wanting to be a hockey play-by-play announcer. So I actually went to college for broadcasting. And that was kind of what gave me my first step into this, because basically I learned how to ad-lib, how to pitch from a stage, how to weave a story together to keep it engaging, talking with tempo. And that, at a party 20-something years ago, I don't want to date myself, a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, you're in radio?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Boy, do I have a job for you. You're coming to work on a cruise ship." And I said, "No, I'm not interested. I've heard about 80 hours a week, 8 months straight." He goes, No, this is the job, Nick. This is the job that everyone on the ship wants. If you can pitch from a stage, it's yours." And the long and the short of it is I wound up working at one point for 8 different cruise lines over 20 years. And I was the pitch guy for everything duty free. So what would happen is we'd have 4,000 guests come on every single week, and we would pitch them liquor, jewelry, Swiss watches, anything that was a legitimate duty free product. And what was amazing was that every year they would be, "Nick, here's 50 new products. Write copy for it." So I essentially became a copywriting factory before copywriting was kind of a thing as it is today. So to kind of summarize, I spent 20 years on a stage pitching in front of anywhere from 200 to 2,000 people and live. And the key element from that I took away was that every week I had 4,000 new guests. So I would take verbiage. I would take 27 words in a sentence I had to pitch your product, Scott Aaron's product. And if I made 8 sales that week, I'd tweak it a little bit because I had a brand new group the next week. It was when I look back, it was such a unique marketing opportunity. So that's what it was. It was that background in radio, the years on the cruise ship. And then I always tie this back to, it was growing up in Montreal. And if you're not familiar with Montreal, Montreal is truly a European city in North America, but it's a French city. It's a Romance language, and they talk about things beautifully. So when you take the radio and all these years of pitching and how to talk beautifully about something, that's where I'm at today.
So do you remember what your first pitch was? And can you take the audience through the art of a 30 to 45 second pitch so they can actually hear what it's like to actually be on the other end of it?
All right. I will try and tell this story quickly because I can tell you about my very first pitch. And the reason was I was pitching art, and it was the Welcome Aboard show. I was on a ship that was based out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Okay. So it was a 3 and 4 day. On the 4 day, we had Americans coming down for business retreats. On the 3 day, it was all Puerto Ricans. So I get there and I go to say to the cruise director, "Hey, I'm the new art guy and I got a pitch." He goes, "You can't get up and do your pitch to get people to come to your presentation." I said, "Why not?" He goes, "We're all Puerto Rican." He goes, "You speak Spanish?" I said, "No, I'm Canadian. I speak French." He goes, "And you can't do it." So what I did, this is a true story. I went to the customer service desk and I got one of the pursers, one of the guest services people who was from Chile. And I said, "Okay, here's my pitch. Write this out for me phonetically in Spanish, because I speak French. It's a Latin language, so there's similarities. So I paced in this tiny little cabin for 4 hours, memorizing this 90 seconds in a foreign language. And I get backstage and the cruise director says to me, he goes, "You can't go on stage unless you learn Spanish." I said, "Well, I kind of did." So I broke into the, "Hey, let me tell you what I do." And he goes, "Okay, you got stones." So I don't know what I can say here, Scott. So I get up on stage and I am shaking. I'll never forget my arm. It felt to me like it was so obvious because I was terrified. But because I had it memorized, I was talking from a place of knowledge. I got up there, and at the end of the 90 seconds, I got a standing ovation from 2,000 Puerto Ricans. And I came off the stage, and the cruise director goes, "What did you say to them? Write that down for me." So I've been there, even with my background of being absolutely terrified. But I think if you take it in bite-sized chunks, if you take it in your 45 to 90 seconds and really write it out, we can talk about some of the key things that you always want to be looking for. And then you really have to know it. Because one thing I learned years ago in radio was that you will be an authority if it sounds like you're talking from a place of knowledge. And that's one thing I talk about all the time is, if you want to be credible, I'm not going to buy from you if you're not credible. How do you build credibility? Well, think about it. If you go to a big box store to buy something in electronics and the guy who's talking to you might not have charisma, might not have pizzazz, but he knows his stuff. Are you going to make a confident purchase? Usually you are, right? So talking from a place of knowledge is key. And when you take your script and you start working on it, just having that one part, you don't have to have anything else memorized. But if you know that, if you can get up on stage like you're a performer, just for that 45 to 90 seconds, it's going to set you apart from everyone else who's trying to sell what you're selling.
You know, it's interesting because I can't tell you how many times I speak to people about what I do, whether it's my academy or my coaching, and they're like, "Wow, you sound really confident." And I said, "Well, of course I am, because I know what I'm doing. This is what I do for a living." But there are so many network marketers and entrepreneurs, Nick, that they're not confident in talking about what they do. You know, like you said, they got a live one. You know, they got and they just, it's repetition. So let's break down the art of the pitch, because when you can pitch from a genuine, authentic, but an authoritative place, your sales will go up, because
no question,
there's a comfort level from the other person that comes with that, because it's a confident buy. It's a confident yes. So let's break that down.
Okay. I just want to say this really important point first. I look at a lot of pitches every day. People send me their pitches. I rewrite them for them. I give them an explainer video on how to actually present it. And a lot of times people will come to me and say, "Here's my pitch. I don't want to change it." And if you're listening to this right now and you know your pitch, I just want you to think about this. Let's say you started a business 5 years ago and you started thinking about that business 2 years before. During that sexy new relationship phase you were having with this business, you fell in love with taglines and what your product offering is. But the reality is that 95% of people have not revisited that, and it becomes a crutch. So I'm just going to ask, if you just listen to these key points, take it from Greenfield. I'm asking you to write out 45 to 90 seconds of stuff. Okay. So how do you take everything you've done in your career or everything about your product and your service and distill it down to 45 to 90 seconds? What I always start with is, what are the layers that define your story or your services story or your product story? So visualize this. Think of those 4 to 5 year blocks, Scott, that you've had in your life. Okay. Basically from 18. So let's say 18 to 22, you may have been in college.
Let's do this. Let's pretend I'm gonna give you a softball. So in network marketing, a lot of the companies are transformational. You know, the shakes and cleanses, and there's essential oil. So a lot of it is based off of physical transformation. The before I said yes, and now the after since I have. So let's go with that example.
Okay. Okay, threw me a curveball, but I will come back. So one of the things then, if you're talking about products, let's just say hypothetically, might be in a saturated market. Okay, there's a lot of competition out there. Use better verbiage, and that seems so simple. But every single pitch that I see has one of these three words in it: either amazing, disruptive, or unique. Okay, which makes them not amazing, not disruptive, and not unique. So as silly as this seems, I have a few browsers open at all time. I always got LinkedIn open. I've got, my website open. I've always got thesaurus.com open. And when you start playing around, just to speak in general, because again, growing up in Montreal, English wasn't my first language and neither was French. It's what we call franglais. It's a mix-up of the two. So when you dig deep into thesaurus.com and you start finding words and synonyms, you moving words around, like a guy was talking to me the other day and he said, he had this great business and he said, would you rather be the landlord or would you rather be the tenant? Well, of course you want to be the landlord. Well, he said landlord twice in 8 seconds. Would you rather own the building or be the tenant? Well, obviously you want to be the landlord, right? And I think when you literally write out what your pitch and what your presentation is, you'll start to see those words in there. Like they'll just start to pop, almost like they're highlighted. And digging into thesaurus.com is going to give you the opportunity to really position yourself in a different way. Okay.
No, that's so good, because we always talk about properly branding yourself. And the one thing about branding you always hear: make yourself stand out. So how can you make yourself stand out? Stop using disruptive. Stop using unique, amazing, incredible, one of a kind. Go to but it's so, my podcast is called Network Marketing Made Simple. I try to break everything down very, very simple. And just that takeaway right there, like you've helped me. I'm going to go to thesaurus.com.
Good luck.
Yeah. And I'm going to start breaking down, because I'm a content creator. I write all the time and using different words, because you know what? If they stand out to you, they're going to stand out to the people that are reading it.
Absolutely. Without question. Another thing too, and this is a more advanced technique, but when I'm writing copy or content, I'm writing it as if I'm speaking it. The problem that people have is that when they write it to be read, again, I was terrible at English and grammar growing up, so everything I did was via speaking. But when you actually take spoken content and write it out that way, it changes the way that the person is reading it. With that said, personally, I try to avoid copy, right? I want to use video whenever possible. So with that in mind, another thing that I always insist people do, and it makes them so uncomfortable, but I've had, in all these years in the cruise business, I was a sales guy, but then I also became management and I trained and developed literally hundreds and hundreds of people. And I'll never forget this one guy, great guy, big dude, like 6'6", 300 pounds, looked like a prototypical professional football player. And he was trying to sell jewelry. And I said, okay, Bobby, what I want you to do is I'm going to help you practice tonight before you go into that class and make a presentation tomorrow. But what I want you to do is I don't want you to take your pitch and pitch it to me. I want you to look in the mirror, right? And when, I sold a lot of jewelry over the years, and when you're trying to sell jewelry, it's really elegant and beautiful. And, it's got really luscious raspberry tones. So you got this big football player in front of a mirror trying to get this out. But when I was literally standing next to him, showing him his facial expressions and how it came across, the light bulb went off for him. So the next day he gets up there and he's talking about, luscious and beautiful, all because he was seeing his own feedback in the mirror. So if you're going to buy from yourself, you have to be able to look at yourself and sell yourself, right? I don't mean sell you individually, but I mean literally, would I buy from myself? right? And working the mirror, it's a basic technique, but if you really want to have that 45 to 90 seconds nailed down, you want to be doing it in front of a mirror.
I always tell people also, when you're writing copy, put yourself in the shoes of the person that's reading it.
Yes.
So write it and then pretend like you're the person that you're looking to attract. Would you respond to that? Or if you're sending a Facebook message or a LinkedIn message or a DM on Instagram, and read the message. And if someone sent that to you, how would you respond to it? Because when you can turn the mirror around and you can look at it, it will help you tweak it, but also critique it in a way where it's going to be more open and it's receivable at that point. People are going to actually engage with it.
1,000,000%. And to that point, and you're 100% right on that, Scott. But going back to the mirror thing, the problem when people get a script and you know what, they've nailed the script or I've helped them write it, they're ready for it, they know it. But the problem is without using the mirror, what they're going to do is they're going to talk about what their product is and they're going to talk it in kind of a run-on sentence and you're not going to understand when to pause. And that's not going to feel natural, right? To the person watching it, it's not going to feel natural. So when you're using a mirror, it allows you to not talk like you're reading a script, right? Which is also, again, talking from a place of knowledge. You got to know your script up, down, left, right. If I say, what's word 219 in that 90 seconds, you got to know what that is. But it's 90 seconds. The Star Spangled Banner is longer than 90 seconds, and you know all those words, right? So you really, really have to know it, and you really have to practice it. Now, another thing, if you are in any kind of spoken conversation, and, I have sales guys that work for me and, they're on the phones all day. They're still dialing for dollars. And one thing I'm constantly telling them is you got to smile, right? And it seems silly, but when you're smiling, even if you're on a phone, the person on the other end can sense the warmth. And what's the number one rule of selling? People buy from people they like, right? So having a great pitch, having it down really tight, smiling and being excited, genuinely excited is just those simple things can double or triple the output you're having currently from sales. Another thing, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. I'm telling you right now, whenever I can, I'm standing. If I'm shooting videos for people, I'm standing because one, I use my hands a lot, but there's actually technique to that. It's an acquired skill I've used or I've developed over the years. But when you stand, think about the best conversations you've ever had in your life, Scott. Maybe it's, at the end of the night outside of a bar having some food at a restaurant, or maybe it's at a wedding or wherever. Those those great conversations, you're standing. So subconsciously, you're relaying that to the person who's receiving your message. So if you're doing anything by video, I always say, if you can, stand, right?
So it's interesting you say that. I always tell people if they came over and spent a day with me, they'd be exhausted because I walk anywhere between 4 to 7 miles a day, not outside. I pace around my office. So I'm what they call an active prospector. So for me, when I'm prospecting, when I'm having sales calls, sitting in my office chair is prison because I talk with my hands. I get very animated when I speak and I change the tone of my voice. I make sure that I pause when I want to really have inflection on a certain point. And this has been hours and hours and hours of phone calls, and I can do it in my sleep now. But when you're an active prospector, it raises your vibration, number one.
Yes.
Number two, it raises your energy. And if you're on the phone, and there are so many people that are watching and listening to this that are in network marketing, and when they're doing their calls, they may be sitting in their car, they may be in their, get up and walk around. I can't tell you how important it is for your energy to flow. And Nick, there's days where I am burnt at the end. I'm physically tired, because that's the kind of energy you want to bring to calls. I close as many sales as I do because I'm passionate about what I'm talking about. Even right now, I'm passionate about talking about how passionate I am about talking about it. And it's funny because it's so true. When you're passionate about what you're doing, people can feel it, they can see it, they can hear it, and they can sense it.
Absolutely. And that's why I tell people, if it's not a product or a service that you really don't believe in, find something else, because you're just not going to have success. But, I'll listen to anyone's pitch. I get guys, because of what I do, messaging me on LinkedIn all the time. I will answer the door when people, I have so much respect for people knocking on doors, old school sales techniques. And I'll be like, can I give you some unsolicited advice? I'll coach these guys up. But I used to literally, we had a high turnover on the cruise ships, obviously, but all those years I would pick people out of Starbucks. All I was looking for was a little bit of personality, right? And a little bit of genuine warmth. And if I had that, I could mold them into someone who could move around a stage and glide around a stage. Because you got to understand, when I was doing these pitches, I wasn't hidden in a little lounge on a cruise ship. I was on the main theater stage where they had all the production shows. And the first thing I would tell people is, I was doing a 45 to 50-minute script, pitching anywhere from 50 to 70 products in that time, and how to make each one sound unique. That's when I started using thesaurus.com. But I would always teach people, there'd be a podium there and you could have your notes there as an emergency, right? But really what you want is a couple bullet points. Because if you're talking from a place of knowledge and you know your content, I just want you to take that bullet point and then I want you to walk around the stage. And I would literally, in these training videos I would build for these people, I would have them walk up to the front of the stage and pause. And that 2-second pause, it's one thing to do it in a phone conversation. It's one thing to do it in a video. But when you've got 1,500 people staring at you, and I force them, I say in your head, count it off. 1, 2. Subconsciously, everyone stops. They assume you're going to say something incredibly important. And that's where you lay in your call to action, right? You get them excited, you get them motivated, and then you drop it. And that's where you kind of fit that in. Couple more things that I always really suggest people work on. One is understanding what your secret weapon is. What truly makes you unique? And that could be where you're from. That could be a unique piece of maybe education that you have that somehow ties in to what you do. And let me go back, you took me down the network marketing path, but the first thing I was talking briefly about, those 4 to 5 year blocks of your life where things happen to you. Maybe you were in college, then you had that first job, maybe as a digital marketer, or maybe you worked at Starbucks as a barista. Those experiences, you might not think of them as relevant, but if you find that one thread that makes it compelling and relevant, it can really set you apart and distinguish you. Maybe you studied something completely unique in university or college and don't think it's relevant. But if you stop and look at it from a third-party point of view and think about it, those ties are what really get people engaged and interested in you. And again, people buy from people they like. Larry King, the old presenter from CNN, one of the things I read in his book 25 years ago was, within the first 30 seconds of meeting someone, they know where I'm from. And that was relevant to him. It's always important that I let people know I live in Arizona now because there's no snow here. But it's important for people to understand I'm from Montreal because it is so relevant to everything that I do. And they're like, well, what does that have to do? But now they're interested. What's Montreal? What's so unique about Montreal? Right? It's just those little hooks, those little unique things. So toss me a product that someone who's watching this might be selling. And let me try and craft something on the spot here.
Weight loss shakes.
Okay. Let me tell you, I am an example of that. Okay. I've undergone a personal health transformation for myself. And the reason is I'm 43 years old. I've got 3 beautiful kids. I want to live a long time for these guys. So I really started to look at myself inwardly and what changes can I make that I can commit and I can stick to. And personally, I love shakes because, first of all, who doesn't like a shake? They're easy. They're quick on the go. Get a great blender bottle. You're ready. Okay. And then I'll sit down. I still like to cook. It's a really important part. I grew up cooking. All the men in my family cook. It catches people off guard. They come to a big family event. All these men are in the kitchen. But then I'll cook something super healthy for dinner. So last night I baked my wife a beautiful salmon with some roasted broccoli. So it was an easy decision for me to start, having shakes. Then once I had that level down, Scott, I'm like, okay, let me start going to the gym every day. So I get up now at 4:45 every single morning. I'm in the gym by 5:30, and I sweat for a solid 45 minutes with a trainer. I come out of there, and then I take an ice cold shower because now I've done the 2 worst things in my day. And what do I have to look forward to? Beautiful shakes, great dinner, beautiful time with my family.
So, and I love what you did there because you made it personal and you also gave relatable things. Convenience, easy, on the go, but also the next level. You got motivated. You wanted to start going to the gym. You're doing the things that maybe once you couldn't or didn't want to do before, but now that the ball was rolling, you started to add things on. Now, what are some things, that basic things for that new entrepreneur, that new network marketer that doesn't really understand the science of a pitch? What's the basic, simplistic way that they can put something together for themselves that they can work on and really get good at pitching what they're passionate about, which will end up being the catalyst for closing more sales?
So what I would say, the easiest way to do this is take your phone and record yourself talking about what you know about the product. Don't sit in front of a computer with Word open trying to write it out. Start by talking about it. Because when you talk about things, it starts popping ideas into your head, words, ideas, different ways to look at it. And then rewatch the video. People hate watching themselves on a video. You need to do that. You absolutely have to watch yourself in a video. And then take notes. Find those good words that you have. Second thing is, I've always got some sort of notepad with me. And that's because, even today, I was like, I'm going to talk to Scott tonight. I should have a couple ideas popped in my head. I said, let me make a note about that. And if you do that for a Sunday afternoon, you can really have a solid 45 to 90 second presentation together. Hang out on thesaurus.com, switch some words up, but then go to friends and family, supportive friends and family, and say, hey, look, can I give you my pitch? You can't be shy, because if you want to sell anything, and listen, when I started selling, I did not have a thick skin. I had the courage to get up on stage and pitch something because of my radio background, but I did not like hearing people say no to me. So you just got to take that plunge, take the step, the ledge will appear, but shoot videos of yourself, write down keywords, and then try and mesh it together. And then once you have something that flows, then you have to have it memorized. And I mean, like, the Star Spangled Banner or whatever it is, whatever your favorite song is, you need to know your pitch like the lyrics, right?
So powerful. It's so true.
It is one of the basic things I have always taught is talking from a place of knowledge. And it was a radio guy, it was a producer, Kyle Taylor in Toronto, that said to me, he goes, Nick, you know what? Sports stuff, you can talk about sports stuff. Morning DJ, I don't know if you can be that. But the sports stuff, and you talk from a place of knowledge. And when you talk from a place of knowledge, you're credible. Now, he was saying that as a radio producer to me. And I turned that into something that was about building credibility in sales because it perfectly aligned, right? One thing I want everyone out there to understand too, this is a really key point. don't make assumptions walking into a conversation about what a client needs, because you can't diagnose a problem and offer a solution when you haven't listened to the client and diagnosed the ailment. So, with the people who might be listening to this, it might be all outbound. But when you do have someone on the phone, if you're selling a healthcare product, if you're talking about shakes, let's talk about shakes again. And you got someone on the line that you can get into, let's say, a multi-level marketing situation, get them some great shakes. Do you have kids? Tell me about your family. Personalize it for them. What's their motivation? Why would they want to? Because listen, getting healthy is tough. Once you get into a cycle of 2 to 3 weeks, it's easy. But I walk through, the grocery store, I'm like, I would like that and that and that. But I walk by it, and I just go and I get my salmon or my chicken or whatever I'm going to grill up. Engage and listen. And that's one thing that a really good friend of mine keeps telling me is he's a great sales guy. He doesn't talk a lot. He's very quiet and subdued, but he's a brilliant listener. And when you're listening to people and you start to get into a habit of, oh, hold on, they said that keyword about their family. Oh, they said that back pain. Oh, they said this about that. Oh, you know how I solved my back pain? Well, first of all, I lost 30 pounds. Back pain got a lot better. I'm not saying that'll work for you exactly, but something to consider, right? And then the other thing is, and this is, I don't want to throw the listeners a curveball, but you also have to be able to pivot on your pitch depending on who you're talking to. Because if I'm selling shakes to a 25-year-old woman is going to be different than if I'm selling shakes to a 49-year-old guy, right? So that's a more advanced technique. But it's just something you want to consider. You want to have a really good basic pitch, but remember what I said earlier, the pitch is to get you into that first conversation. You want to build onto the next conversation and the next conversation and the next conversation.
They always say write out 3 or 4 different stories.
Always.
So, if you're doing shakes and you've lost weight, write your weight loss story.
Yes.
If you did shakes and you gained more energy, write an energy story, or a clarity story, or a better sleep story, or an income story. Because then, and you have all of those stories in the back of your mind, depending upon who you're talking to. Oh, I'm talking to someone that wants to lose weight. Let me grab the weight loss story. Oh, I'm talking to someone that wants to, add an additional stream of income. Let me share the income story. Oh, this person's really sluggish and they're falling asleep at work. Oh, let me share the energy story. So,
yes.
So you have the structure of your pitch, but you have the story that goes along with it, depending upon who you're actually talking to.
100%. And I also, if you're listening to this, it is not daunting to sit there and bang out a 45-second pitch. It's 45 seconds. Now, what I do personally, because I have a lot of clients that come to me and they'll give me a pitch. And sometimes I take it from greenfield and start over. Sometimes they got a really solid pitch and I'm just tweaking, right? But what I'll do is I'll have the Word document open all the time, right? So I'll have my basic 45 to 90 seconds. Then when I want to make changes, I'll copy and paste that to the bottom. So now it's my second iteration, still in the same file, because sometimes I'll want to come back to, well, I took out that sentence, but now I have more time. I want to add that sentence back in. So just work that off a document, have 2, 3, 4, 5 iterations of 45 seconds and think about it. If you sit down and say, I'm writing a 45-second pitch right now, it's going to be a lot tougher than saying, okay, let me start with 4 or 5 bullet points, right? And then you'll be having dinner and you'll be like, oh, hold on, idea. And I'll literally get up from the table and I'll say, sorry to my wife, sorry, because I'm Canadian. Let me just write down this thought, right? And I go and I write it down because people, I'm going to remember. They don't remember it. Put it in notes in your phone. However, you got to remember that great line. And the thing is, just because it's a great line today, in 3 days, once you've done 4 iterations of this script, it might not be a great line anymore. You have to be able to let it go, right? It's about how that 45 to 90 seconds works cohesively.
And, the last thing I want to add on to that before we close out is this takes practice. This is like anything, it's repetition.
Yes.
you're going to suck in the beginning when you're doing this. I mean, I always go back because, you know, I have a fitness background. So I always go back to the gym. And you don't go to the gym once and then look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You have to go all the time. And, you know, when you're working on your sales pitch, when you're working on your closing skills, when you're working on sharing your story, it's repetition. It's getting those reps in, talking to enough people. And then over time, you will come from that place of knowledge. You will come from that place of confidence where you don't have to, you're so excited to get on the phone with someone because you know exactly what you're going to say. There's nothing that they can say on the other line that is going to throw you off because you can bob and weave with the best of them.
Absolutely. I love the reference. You are 100% right, but I will give you, I'm going to bring this back up because this is a hack. This is a cheat. Once you've worked your script and you've massaged it and you feel good about it, get in front of that mirror. And you will do 10 times the reps by using, people are like, this seems so stupid. This is a technique I have used for 20 plus years. The hundreds of people I have hired and trained, I have stuck them in front of that mirror after I did it to that guy, Bobby, because it works. It gets you there faster. You're right. It takes reps, but you want to get there faster, get in front of the mirror.
Love that. So, Nick, before we wrap up, how can people find out about more about what you do and how you help them and how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. Just come to salespitching.com. I've got some great free content there. There's a ton of free content on pitching, all kinds of stuff about sales, how to write pitches, how to pitch pitches, creating pitches for LinkedIn messaging, funnels, websites. If you want to convert something, just go to salespitching.com.
Love it. Nick, thank you so much for being here. I know the viewers and the listeners got so much from this because, you know, you don't really hear too much about pitching. You hear about sales techniques and closing techniques, but it starts with the pitch. So, Nick, just grateful for you and thank you so much for being here.
It was a pleasure, Scott. Anytime, brother.
So, guys, I hope you enjoyed today. You know, remember, you know, get your repetitions in, practice in front of the mirror, and every single one of you can be as skilled as Nick and other people out there. Don't give up. Keep moving forward, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again so much for checking out this week's episode. And if you can, head over to iTunes, search for Network Marketing Made Simple, leave me a 5-star rating, basic review. I would be grateful for all of the support you guys can give me. And again, if you'd be interested in learning more how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your business, your brand, and your bank account, head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net. Fill out the form for your free 15-minute discovery call so I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can work together. And again, thank you guys so much. Grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time.